Let's call this meeting to order of the Oconee County Planning Commission this Monday, July 1st, 2019 at approximately 6 p.m. Our first order of business is invocation by our county chaplain. Mr. Root.
Pray with me if you'd like to. Dear Father, thank you for this precious day that you've made. Thank you for these folks who are willing to give of their time to do the important work of this county, to plan, to hear, to listen, to give guidance, and really just to help, to be servants. Help us all to have that servant heart. Give us all your wisdom, and let this be your meeting. In your name I pray. Amen.
Barnett, will you lead us in pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you have before you the minutes of our, we got public comment first, so we'll go with the non-agenda items. Mr. Barnett.
I guess a little of both. For the record, I'm Jerry Barnett. I live on the farm where I grew up in a dairy barn. So that should be enough said about that. The things are being discussed are a little bit disturbing to me when people start flexing muscle or trying to flex muscle they do not have, or create muscle that they should not have. Now, listened to all this back and forth last week about the septic tanks. Believe you me, if there was a septic tank problem here, it would already have been addressed. We've got higher agencies, much higher than Oconee County's Pine Street to address this problem. When it comes to pollution of our streams, the Corps of Engineers is the ultimate authority. I served in the Corps. So I'd like to see you to recognize the pecking order. True, it could be very serious, but we already have the agencies addressing this. And we can't have something on the books to use as a weapon against the rural community. So I think all of us see what is trying to happen here. One thing I'd like to mention, and I'd love to see somebody up there have the guts to somehow insert our Bill of Rights as a mission statement to this comprehensive plan. After all, this great country celebrates a birthday this week rather. We celebrate every year. So let's remember that. I can't think of a better time to bring that up and make sure this happens, because we're supposed to be American citizens here. But I see some people that are not acting like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Okay, now you have before you the minutes of our last meeting, 6/17/2019. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Any corrections?
I know. He's getting better. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay. No further discussion. All those approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Staff update.
Certainly. So as you cannot see on the monitor in front of you, we are, at the last meeting, you all had requested I give some updates on some things. I don't do it at every meeting just because we don't always have a whole lot that's super interesting to bring up. We are getting Dollar General on the Rochester Highway. That's coming. That's kind of just near where the Ingalls is and where the old Bilo was. There's also a Bojangles coming in as well, in that general area. I've also received quite a bit of interest, or I've had more conversations about more multifamily housing focused on housing students. So we're getting like hundreds of more beds of student housing has been talked about, discussed with me, along the 123 area between Seneca and Clemson. So it's just something for you all to be aware of as far as the amount of interest that Clemson University is generating in this county. Also, you can't see it, but I had a really interesting graph here. I'm telling you, this interesting graph. Our building codes guys, we have 5 building codes inspectors, and they did over 400 inspections, closer to 500 in May, and probably on track to do that many this June, between 5 people all throughout this county. I just like to recognize the fact that we have a tremendous growth spurt happening, and we have, our guys are definitely out there doing their jobs the best they can, as quick as they can. So that's what that graph is about.
What is the difference in the fail and the fail with a $50 fee?
I believe, and Scott Farrell would be the ultimate on this one, but the fail with the fee is if you fail it multiple times the same issue. If, you come out one time, and you fail the rough and framing, and then you fail it again, and then you fail it again, there's only so many times we can come out and give you the punch list, and for you to get that done. But you see, it's a much lower number. Most builders don't want us to come out there multiple times, and so they get it done right. We have a lot of very good builders in the county. No other questions? That concludes the staff update.
Okay, Mr. Root?
Yes, I just wanted, I've spoken with Mr. Pearson about this and Adam about this. In case you're wondering where I've been, not been here. For the past 4 years, I have been attending all the planning commission meetings, but we're having a paradigm shift. I will attend whenever you have a legal issue, something going on. Certainly pass along to Mr. Pearson or Mr. Chapman, and I'll make sure that I'm here to help out. Adam and I probably are, pretty much every day we're talking about some legal issue, and he'll bring up the planning commission issues to me also. But I'll be here on an as-needed basis, as that's going to be my approach for all the commissions and committees. When I first started, Mr. Mulder said just go to the planning commission and council meetings, not even council committee meetings. So now I'm going to the council meetings, council committee meetings, and instead of just going to the planning commission meetings, going to any other commission, board, whatever meetings as they have needs, as legal issues arise. So it's more spread out. Hey, we have access to the county attorney without me going to a meeting every night or whatever. So that's where it is. If you see something on the horizon coming up that you're going to bring up that you think I could help with, then relay it to the chairman or relay it to Mr. Chapman. I'll be glad to make sure that I can be here. But that's kind of way I've been operating, if you haven't heard, and the way I plan to operate in the future. And it's been, you've been working through the comp plan, not that that is no legal document that's riddled with a lot of legal issues, but a lot of what you've been doing is policy stuff that I don't give input into in my position. Make sense?
Okay. That we will go, we got item number 7, sign ordinance discussion.
Mr. Pearson asked me to put the sign ordinance discussion up on the agenda for you all to look at, and
And I forgot to say too, after this sign ordinance, I'm also ducking out. I'm going to Charlotte with my son in the morning, and yeah, it's going to take a long time for us to get coordinated between the two of us to take care of ourselves. So.
Have a safe trip.
Travel safe on 85.
Yes.
The reasoning about putting the sign ordinance back on the agenda was I've had several citizens wanting to do something about certain signs, billboards, such as that in the county. I rode around the county, and I've got about, that I know of, there's 14 between Seneca and Westminster that are not being used for the purpose they were built. They just got their advertisement. They don't have a business advertisement on it. There's a couple on 28. There's some on the other areas of town. I've checked with the staff, and we haven't had an abundance of requests for billboards, but at one time, we had a big abundance to get all 14 of those put on 123, and the citizens have decided they don't want to see that happen again, to have 14 or 15 billboards all put up at one time. Not saying it's going to happen tomorrow or whatever, but it can happen. And their point was the view. There's several counties. There's one in the Charleston ordinance has they've got a few things in an ordinance in Charleston County. And it says, for example, most billboards are banned because they distract drivers and obliterate views. That's in their ordinance. And it says if left unregulated, the law states signs would likely proliferate. Yeah, that word. And developed in such a way as to visually blight the community and create eyesores. Everybody in the county, and I hate using that word blight, but everybody in the county is always talking about our beauty, our natural resources, our scenery. But yet, if we have another burst of billboards, then everybody has a right to advertise, but their right to advertise does not override the citizens or visitors or otherwise, their right to actually see the scenery and things that we have around here. And there's no reason to have 28, I think I counted, billboards that have no advertisement at all other than advertise with me, dial 770, whatever. If they can use those first. They were asking for no more billboards in the county from this point on, or from their point on. We can do that and talk to council, or we could set some more restrictions on billboards. Personally, I don't think 1,300 feet is far enough apart for them. I think they should be a lot further apart. That would lessen the obstruction, but it's just brought it back to the table and discuss what can be done or what should be done. And I would recommend that each and every one of you talk to your people in your districts or where you live, find out what their opinions are, and then we can come back with something that everybody would agree with rather than trying to come up with something just on our own. I mean, I've talked to probably 60 people now, and each one of them would love to see no more billboards put up. And I think we can do that legally from this point, just not have any more installed. That may not be the right way to go, because 85 is a perfect place for a billboard. You can see them from 3 miles away. 24, in my opinion, 76, some of these, our highways that has all the perfect scenery on them, there shouldn't be any billboards at all. And we do have some restrictions on the 2-lane roads, right?
Yes. For sign.
For signage. There's also, I've read some studies that lower signs get more view than billboards do. So that's the reasoning behind putting all that back on the agenda. So I'm gonna turn it over to y'all and let y'all discuss it. And if y'all wanna wait, we can also bring it back up at another meeting. If y'all wanna go out, get the people's opinion on it, we can bring it back up at another meeting. But we can also direct staff to look into other counties that have ordinances against billboards. They can pull up the pros and cons of having them or not having them. I don't think we need to get into a point to where we're telling people they got to take them down, because then we're going to end up having to pay them for lost revenue. But we can stop any more from being put in the county. And several places have done that.
Can I have
Go.
the floor?
I'll-
This is the third time in my 3 years that we've brought up this sign ordinance. Only reason you've brought it back up is because you didn't get what you wanted last time, because you brought it back as soon as we passed it last time, and now you're bringing it back again.
I brought it back because people asked me to look into it in my district.
We passed a sign ordinance.
Which had-
60 people out of this county should not be telling everybody in this county what they can do on their own property.
But your right to have a billboard overrides my right to be able to
If
drive
it's on
down
my
the road and not
property,
look.
absolutely
No,
it does.
Your right doesn't
Your right
supersede
does
mine.
not infringe upon my rights when it's on my property.
Your right to put up a billboard to obstruct my view does not,
Well,
Does
don't
not
come
override
past
that.
where the billboards are. Those people own that property, they paid for that property, they pay the taxes on that property.
Okay, so
They
if I decide to
pay fees
go
for
right beside your
everything they
house-
do on that property.
so if I go beside your house and put up 4 or 5 strip joints, a couple of bars, a hog farm, and a
There
sewage
was
plant,
a
ain't
bar
nothing you
right
can
down
do.
from my house, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it, because it wasn't my property.
So, the pig farms and all this and
Have no
water
problem
treatment.
with them.
Okay, that's fine with me.
I just don't think it's right bringing something back up when we already passed it, just because it didn't go your way. I could go through
It's
this
not
plan,
my
and there's
way.
a lot of stuff in here that I don't agree with, but we shouldn't be bringing it back up just because one person on the panel.
It's
Didn't
not
get
my
passed.
thoughts, it's the people that asked me to bring it up. I brought it up. That's what we're here for, is to listen to the people that are out in our district.
Well, I said
And
my
if you
two
have
cents.
5 people that ask you to do something, you're gonna do it.
I don't know. It depends on if we just discussed
But
it
that's
a
our
year
job.
ago and passed it.
That's our job, is to do what the people ask.
Let me ask you this, what about phrasing a question? We've got 4 focus meetings coming up. Adam, is it all right to phrase a question about billboards and just see what they say about them? Don't say, we're thinking about this or we're thinking about that. Just tell us about your philosophy on billboards. How about that?
I think that's baiting people into a question. I mean, if you're not getting massive complaints from the community to the planning department, not to one specific person, then I think going out there and asking that specific question is going to get the answers that you want from that group, but it's still not getting the consensus of
We
the
don't
community.
get massive input from anyone. There's 2 people at the meeting. So if we don't listen to the people out in the public that we talk to every day and run into, then who are we gonna listen to?
Then ask them
We
to
got
come
one
up
guy
here
that
and
doesn't live
present
in
it
the
to the whole
county
council.
and one
I
guy
mean, the whole committee.
back here.
If I may start to answer the question from Mr. Smith. The last 5 meetings, so I've tried to stay away from trying to lead people in for sure to specific questions. Getting people here who've spoken with you is certainly an idea, a good idea. More people show up in meetings, the better. We received a lot of comments. We've received hundreds, if not thousands of comments, and some have addressed signage, although I'm not ready to speak with any authority as to exactly what all those comments are. I'll have those all put together for you at the end of on the 25th is our last scheduled public input meeting, and I'll certainly collate all that information, especially anything involving signs or anything involving anything that is not already addressed, and certainly bring it to you. Regarding billboards specifically, if you all want to come up with like a list of questions as a whole, I suppose I could do that, like a kind of survey thing.
I've just seen
That's not-
some of these focus meetings from other counties where they come up with a list of questions. And I was just going to suggest just saying the word billboards and seeing what kind of reaction you get, or signage, or something like that. And
Are we
not-
just gonna let billboards be something to take about 6 months out of every year on as a standard thing?
Right.
I mean, we have spent month after month after month for several years dealing with billboards and agreeing and, producing documents. Now, can't we let that rest for a year? We're working on comprehensive plan this year. What's new about billboards?
I'm just gonna be honest, I thought we had already banned them in the last sign ordinance, so could you, if you don't mind, could you send us all a copy of that via email at some point? Just so we can reread? I know there was a great deal of discussion, I know we had a presentation about the sizes, so.
I think they're not
Just-
allowed on two-lane
Yes.
roads.
Is that?
I'll send you all
two-lane
the,
I
roads?
think
I'll
that's the,
send you all the, in there.
The
I'm-
current
I'm looking at it here, but you all can't see it. I'll certainly send it to you all to look at the sign code. But billboards have not been banned. Billboards are still up in the county. In the last 2 years, I wanna say we've had about 2 requests regarding billboards. Many more regarding signage, on-site signage for businesses and things of that nature. I think only 2, I wanna say 2 for billboards that I can remember. But I'll certainly send you all the text of the ordinance.
Of the requests that were made, were you able to approve them, or did you have to deny them based on our current standards?
I wanna say they were approved, they're along 123, I don't think they were, I don't think anyone noticed them.
sounds kind of.
Well, I was gonna say, and most of the people that I know just go, "Oh, another billboard, okay, whatever. And just keep going, because they know better than to raise Cain.
But there's a whole variety of billboard rules throughout the country, from no rules to no billboards, there's the whole gamut.
Okay, you get the information, send us that, and then we'll move on to the next. Comprehensive plan, public comment. Mr. Barnett. Comprehensive plan.
As I said a while ago, I'd love to see the Bill of Rights incorporated into this comp plan. That might discourage special interests down the road, or slow them down in their zeal to conquer the rural community. I don't know, we have some people coming here that are obsessed with our freedom and individual rights that we celebrate here. And they tend to live in teeny-weeny lots, on teeny-weeny lots covered with rooftop and the development somewhere. And they tend to have no regard whatsoever for the owners of the rural landmass, other than try to control us in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Y'all are just talking about some of this right now with the billboards. Personally, take them or leave them. I have one yet to have a billboard jump out in the road in front of me. So eventually, I think it's a problem. It's going to take care of itself. They'll find a different way of advertising. You know, hence the vacant billboards. But it is a problem. Most problems eventually take care of themselves, you know. But again, I'd love to see you recognize the Bill of Rights and, you know, our founding principles of this great country. Obama thought he would make a snide remark about the people of Appalachia, and he intended it as a snide remark that we cling to our Bibles and our guns. He left the most important thing out. We cling to our Constitution, because the people of this Appalachian Ridge are the ones that have fought this nation's wars. Think about it. Thank you.
Mr. Tom?
Good evening. For the record, I'm Tom Markovich. I read the transportation element. I felt like it spent an awful lot of time talking about a lot of roads that the county has no control over. Okay, there's just all kinds of information in here that is totally outside the realms of what this commission and what the council can actually have some impact on. That being said, that's just a general note. I did find one particular error down on page 9-9 in committing patterns. It said in paragraph E, that first paragraph, second sentence, it says among those that live in a town or a city, only 4.1% or 7,137 workers also work in the same town and city. That would seem to indicate that we got somewhere around 175,000 workers that are living in the municipalities. So we've either got a math error or a typo, and I suspect it's a typo because you can take the numbers and back into it and you'll end up at about 1,137. So anyway, now, I couldn't help but a few things in here kind of caught my attention coming from the development side. And you all have heard me go on and on and on about how developers, I mean, we pay for the roads, we pay for the sewer, we pay for water pipes, we pay for all this stuff. And we get down to this section in here, it talks about funding opportunities. And I'm like, yeah, that's what developers like. We like funding opportunities. Because then we start talking about exactions. And that's what we already do. I mean, we're not allowed to develop a piece of property unless we give the road to the county, give the sewer to the county, give the water lines to the county, everything about it. So, and then it talks about some other funding opportunities like impact fees and a few other things. Now, I don't see those as being funding opportunities. It explains the relevance in the sense that it says, well, it'll help save fees and other things. Well, the fact of the matter is, after we pay for the roads, the sewer, and the water lines, the water department's going to charge you a tap fee anyway. Sewer department's going to charge you an impact fee, 2 impact fees actually, and tap fees. So, I mean, it doesn't save anybody any fees, okay? You're still paying the fees, and you're paying, all this stuff gets wrapped up into the whole thing. So I'm not sure that I agree with the idea of funding opportunities. Anyway, and then we get to bicycle and pedestrian, especially pedestrian. Most of the time, bicycle trails are going to be done in conjunction with state roads, okay? They're the only ones that have got the right-of-ways that are big enough to involve any sort of bike trail, and they're more than likely going to get some kind of federal grant in order to do it. The other thing that's kind of interesting, it ties in with that, I don't know if y'all have noticed it, but for the last 6 years, a lot of the rural roads in South Carolina have been expanded in width by about 4 feet, which means they've increased the size of the road by generally about 20%, which means they've increased the runoff from that road by 20%. Now, we talked in the last time about how runoff water and all this stuff, developers cause that. Well, the state's building an awful lot of roads and adding on to an awful lot of roads. It's adding on to a lot of stormwater. And so I think that needs to be brought out. The other thing is when it comes to pedestrians, we've talked about sidewalks in this county for as long as I can remember. And we've had an ordinance against putting sidewalks in subdivisions for as long as I can remember. It's never been allowed. And even though, interestingly enough, if you go up here to Short Street in Walhalla, which is actually a county road, you'll see sidewalks on both sides. Now, how that happened, I don't really know. But nonetheless, we got sidewalks on a county road in Walhalla. So, the other thing is that we not only don't allow them, if we have a subdivision or a commercial type subdivision and we're putting in a road and it abuts a road that already has a sidewalk, we don't get to incorporate that in, we have to remove it. That's the county ordinance. And so there's gonna be some stuff in here about goals, and it's gonna talk about pedestrian, walkways, sidewalks, all that sort of stuff. And all I'm saying is, in 25 years that I've been coming to these commission meetings, it's always been illegal. It will still be illegal 10 years from now. So, go figure. Thank you.
All right, public outreach update. Adam?
Sir. All right, so we're having 4 more meetings, public outreach meetings. I'm scrolling up to the graphic so I can read it. The first one will be in Mountain Rest, at the Mountain Rest Community Club on July 9th at 6 p.m. The second one will be at the Salem Community Center Town Hall on July 11th at 6 p.m. The third one will be in Westminster, at the Westminster Depot on July 18th at 6 p.m. And we'll go to the south part of the county on July 25th at the Fair Oak Youth Center at 6 p.m. These are more of the same outreach meetings. We've already advertised them as public meetings of the Planning Commission in case we have a quorum of y'all show up. We'd love to see you there again if possible. On your desks right now, could you hand me one of those, please? We put one of these. This came out in today's paper. This is our newest insert for the comprehensive plan. It's economic development. Got a lot of input from OEA as well as a lot of other sources. There's a survey on the back. We've already had 30 responses to the survey online already today. So people are very involved with these. And as I mentioned earlier, what's happening with all of this information, as well as the information from the public outreach meetings, is that we're gonna, Vivian, Bill, and I, we're gonna take all the information in and see, has this been addressed somewhere in the comp plan? Does it say we need to take care of our roads to be better? Well, that's been addressed. Or is it saying something new, like we need flying cars or whatever? All the things that have been addressed, we'll give to you in one big pile. The things that we think have been addressed, so you all can give it a once over. And the stuff that has not been addressed, we think, we'll give you in another pile. And we'll kind of give some suggestions based upon that. So that's where all this public outreach information is going. It's not we're just gathering it to hoard it. We're gonna give it back to you, but we wanna give it back to you in something, in a form that y'all can do something with. So.
And you think that's gonna be when?
The last scheduled, public outreach meeting is July 25th. The last, insert will go out next month. So, end of August, I think is probably a good time frame where I can say, generally speaking, that. Also, not completely about public outreach, August 5th will be the Alto will come here. I haven't discussed with you, Mr. Chairman, so I'm sorry for bringing this up at this moment, but I just got the email. August 5th, Alto will be available if you all would like to come and do the presentation about the Highway 123 corridor. But yeah, that's what we got going on for public outreach.
Okay. Executive summary update.
Yes, we made a lot of progress tonight. The vision statement we have finalized. We have gone through 3 of the sections. One of them is called Assets to Build On. Another one is Challenges to Overcome. And the third one is Consequences for Inaction. We're going to let that marinate for another couple of weeks. We'll get back to that and go through those. Again, anybody that wants to come to the meeting, we're down there in that conference room at 5:30 before this meeting. Everyone's welcome. We're hard at it. We're moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, am I up again?
You're up again.
Okay. Last week, we were talking about the community facilities element. And I want to make a motion that we include this as a new strategy in that element. And it simply says, reduce the high school dropout rate, period. And I want to make that as a formal motion.
Do you have what are you gonna list for the agency? Do we need to go ahead and do that, like the accountable agencies or?
Well, I have a new strategy number for it, and the only accountable agency would be the the school board, but of course, they'd love to put the parents in there, but you can't very well do
Right, but I
that.
think there's probably other
And include
other
all employees of the
organizations that
school.
can partner with the school, like Head Start, or what other, like, early intervention things do we have? Because if you get them engaged in the beginning,
They will stay.
they're gonna stay longer. I just think off the
If
top
you've
of
got
my
a
head,
suggestion, yeah.
I would have to look into it, but I'm sure that there's more,
More than just the school board.
organizations, yeah, than just the school district.
So you'd say SDOC, because the entire school district would certainly be,
Right.
I mean, teachers, principal, everybody that's employed in the schools would be accountable for that, certainly.
Do you,
I
do
would
you
think.
remember having like organizations that stepped in and helped in any way or with schools?
In the early years, yes, you know, pre-K, kindergarten, Jump Start usually used to be one that was actually before 4K. So I'm sure they still do it in more urban areas, but there's not a whole lot that gets involved once you get past to middle school or beyond.
And maybe that's what we need to
So-
work on. Maybe we need to get, organizations involved in.
I think we
Partnering
need to
with
get
the
parents
schools
involved before we worry
somehow,
about
yeah.
organizations.
Do you think Carol and Cheryl can come up with a list of the accountable agencies that might be applicable?
So if you made a motion to direct staff to incorporate reduce high school dropout rate and any sort of underlying strategies or goals to that end, then we can bring back we don't have to bring back the whole element. I can just bring back a little couple lines along with accountable agencies and things of that nature, and perhaps there's a few more things we can add to it versus trying to create it from air at the moment. So you could certainly, I think that's probably the most efficient way for us to go about that. But everything you all just said we'll incorporate into.
Department of Social Services is probably one as well, but
Yeah.
again, I think it'd be good to have it as an official thing. And if you want to make that motion, I would certainly second it.
If I could understand that motion, I would. Say it again?
A motion to instruct staff to create a goal for reducing high school dropout rates in the community facilities element.
Okay,
Yeah.
staff to create a goal or a strategy that would say reduce the high school dropout rate.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Tom, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'll make it real quick.
I would be more than happy to share with staff some materials that I have from the time that I sat on the state commission in which we addressed this entire thing. And the active groups that were involved in that at that particular time were some of the large industrial employers in the State Chamber of Commerce, which means all chambers of commerce are always going to be interested in this. Home Builders Association, we were very involved in this, and many other types of groups. There is a vast amount of information out there already. As I mentioned before, we wrote and it had funded the Education Economic Development Act. And there is a whole section that addresses exactly completing high school. And I would be very cautious with the term dropout rate because the completion rate and dropout rate mean two different things to educators. They can give you a dropout rate from the school. It's a very tiny little number. When you get to the completion numbers, it's a very different number. So anyway, Bob, happy to share with the staff what I've got that can help.
Interesting.
Wait a minute, is it possible that any of this data can be put in the text at this point?
Yeah,
Or is that something worthwhile including?
I would, without having it right in front of me right now, the computer's not updated, so I can't look at my share drive, but I'm almost positive that the status for our students is included in that already. Like that information, those numbers are inside of,
They're in there somewhere.
yes, sir. And if they're not, I will work towards getting them in there. I'll bring that back to you all as well.
There's an annual report that's given by the state to the school district, which is then dispersed to the parents, that all of that should be,
I'm almost positive I saw that.
it's
It
there.
actually might be in the population. Yes, I'll make sure that's all in there. I'm almost positive it is.
I think everybody here can agree it's very important to get through the first time, if you can at all possible. There's certain circumstances, economic, whatever, that preclude it, but it's very important for the first time through to get through and complete it. Great, wonderful. It's fun.
All right, before we go into transportation element, I would like to ask that, is there any way possible, it's been brought up by Mr. Barnett, is there any way possible to incorporate the Bill of Rights into this comprehensive plan in some shape, form, or fashion somewhere?
If the planning commission wishes to add the Bill of Rights to the comprehensive plan, you could either add it into the executive summary, you could add it into the body of the text. You all add whatever language you want to. I think you can certainly do that.
Where would it be best to staff?
At the very beginning, put it on top. It wouldn't go in any one particular element. I think it would probably function at it would probably go executive summary and then that, I'm thinking here. But if, somewhere in the front, I think that's where it would go, if that's what you all wanted to do.
If it's approved by y'all, we can get staff to look at it, and if he thinks that the executive summary, maybe at the beginning of that, or at the beginning of the comprehensive plan, I'll get him to look at the best place to put it and bring it back to us at the next meeting, and then we can take a vote then.
Have we written a mission statement for this plan?
Not as yet, I believe Mr. Smith is working on that with the executive summary.
Would it be worth simply referencing the Bill of Rights as something that is a basis of what this board works behind or with in planning for the future of Oconee County?
A mission statement is really who's going to do the vision. And we've kind of finalized the vision statement. In other words, the mission statement would simply say something to the effect that the county is going to incorporate the elements of the vision statement in their efforts to move forward, or in the coming years, something to that effect. It's not another vision statement.
So typically a mission statement deals with the soul of the organization that it's referencing. Does our mission statement deal with the soul of the organization of Oconee County?
I wouldn't think so. It would simply say, who's going to be accountable for doing this?
I don't know that that's typically a mission statement.
Mission statement like summarizes what you are about, what your goal, your goal
The
as an
soul of your
organization.
organization.
Yeah.
Is the way I've always read mission statements with various corporations.
Well, I've always thought that was more like a vision statement. Your vision statement is really your soul. This is what you're really.
With any regard, when that is written, would it be worthwhile, rather than listing the Bill of Rights, to reference the Bill of Rights as a basis for where we look through that lens or filter when making decisions about this county?
I like that.
Let us go back to the drawing board on all of this. This is, we kind of finalized the vision statement, and we more or less said, I'm not sure we really need a mission statement, and we were going on from there.
And I don't mean to jump in on something that I didn't participate in putting together, and I sure respect that being put together. I was just looking at a place where this might be able to be incorporated if we wanted to make that discussion.
Well, let's put it as a placeholder, Mike, and see if we can't incorporate it somehow or another in the executive summary somewhere. Let's not try to find an exact place for it right now. Let us go back and look, because we don't have the whole thing together yet.
But wouldn't it be better to do it now than to go back after you've already wrote it and say, okay, now we have to find a place for it? It's better to look now through that lens and say, okay, let's see where we can incorporate it as we're going along.
Well, I agree with you, Stacy. I agree with you, but we're going through this thing piece by piece. We can back up and see where we can fit it in.
Can I say something? Let's let staff look at this for the next couple of weeks. Let them figure out the best place to put it, and that's where we'll make a decision if that's where we want to put it. If it's at the beginning of the comp plan, or if it's at the actual beginning of the executive summary, and then everything is after that. We'll let staff find the best place to do it, and then we can make decisions at that point, because we can sit up here for half a night trying to decide where it's best. That's why we have staff, and they should be able to find a good place for it. It just needs to be in there. I mean, that's.
And if it's the wish of the commission, I think perhaps this would be a good time to say the committee could go back and at least relook at the possibility of a mission statement.
Yeah.
If that's.
That's great.
I mean, we can do that, yeah.
I really like Mike's suggestion of through the lens of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, because everything we do should be through that lens.
If I may, just from a purely page number thing, I have a really nicely formatted one I'm looking at here that takes up 2.5 pages at most of the preamble and the Bill of Rights itself. So that's just for y'all's information.
Yeah, I don't think that we need to quote the entire thing as the openings of our comprehensive plan, but I like the through the lens of, and then people either know what we're talking about or they don't. So.
So we're gonna
But
See,
if it's okay, as a member of the committee, if it's okay with you guys, we'll go back and revisit the idea of a mission statement and make it as the overarching mission as of the planning commission itself. And then say, then our vision for the next however many years is to do these things using this plan. Does that make sense? Okay.
okay, so y'all bring that back to us,
Hopefully at the next meeting.
hopefully to the next meeting.
to do.
All right. So let's go into the transportation element review.
Yes, sir.
The floor is open for Adam.
If I may, so the last time we brought this to you, there was some consternation about some of the language and stuff not being added. I've had some other conversations after that. So I went back and I tried to figure out the best way to add as few words as possible to get the maximum kind of impact. So if you don't mind me skipping here, so one of the issues was the corridor plans. The corridor plans are not specifically mentioned in here by add, this goal, this goal, this goal, this goal of the corridor plans. But because the corridor plans themselves haven't been adopted, even though I imagine you all may adopt the corridor plan, they haven't been adopted, so I'd hate to add something now that perhaps wouldn't pass. And plus, giving it a kind of a broad enough brush where we say, let's do some plans and then adopt them, I think speaks to those issues. So, under the first goal, 9.1, strategies 9.1.1.2 and 3, commission, 9.1.1.2 is commission studies for transportation corridors and what we're doing now. And the next one is implement those ones. So it kind of, as opposed to listing, because when you see the corridor plan, not to give spoil any endings here, but there'll be about 20 suggestions. And I didn't want to just add all 20 of them before it got planned. So if you all are happy with this, we can leave that language there. And then as we get more of the corridor plans, if you all want to be a little more specific, we can go back and add those. But this, I think, works as a, either a good placeholder or a good set of words for this point in time. And then also, there was another one about electric vehicle plugins, that was 9.3.1.3, which is on page 25. And it said, seek funding to install an electric vehicle charging station near I-85. You all kind of soundly didn't really like that. But, so what I added was examine the need and feasibility of providing alternative fuel stations at relevant county-owned properties. So, for instance, if there's a grant for putting electric cars in our fleet. Well, yeah, we want to put electric charging station at the county buildings. It doesn't mean that we're going to go buy waste to fuel pumps and put them down on random spots by 85. So I think that kind of, those were the two big items that you all had last time regarding the city comment, and I hope I spoke to them appropriately, but that's up to you all.
So do we need a motion to approve the changes?
If you all, when you all get to them in your kind of I hate to take you all off going in a linear fashion. I just wanted to explain what I did. You all could do it right now if you wanted to, certainly, or I would recommend just going through the plan line by line, and when you got to those, kind of speak to them, that way you all don't get thrown off.
So open up.
I got,
Mike?
I read on page 9.2, if everybody will bear with me and turn to that page, a topic of discussion in these forums that we go to are roads. And of course, all the attendant problems that go with them. Here we got local road funding, which is pretty easy to understand. What we pay the taxes for on our fuel, we get so many dollars that we can use for roads. And apparently there's a 3-member Oconee County Transportation Committee that does this. They're appointed by the county legislative delegation. Now, is that the county council or is that the people in Columbia?
Delegation is the Columbia Center.
Okay. We don't really know who those people are, but if you'll bear with me, turn to page 9.11. And then we bring up ACOG. And what they're doing for roads, apparently they get money from the federal funds. And if you work through this, it is very, very confusing what they do, how they do it, and who that group is that makes those decisions. And I guess my question is, do these two groups talk to each other? In other words, are they trying to say, yes, we both agree that such and such road should be widened and should be paved? And do they give any updates to the Transportation Committee when they come up with these decisions? And I don't see that anywhere in here, but I like pictures. So if anybody else is having that trouble, and on page 913, Tom, I thought you would have picked this up. They've got, it says table 8-6, it should be 9-6. I thought you'd have picked that one up. Anyway, think about that, folks. There's two different groups. Are they talking to each other? Who are these people that are involved in it? And, of course, why do we need two different groups? But that's my text comment for the day.
And obviously, that table alone needs to be updated because 17's done, 18's done. We need to have now in there 19, 20, 21, and 22.
Well, good.
Just as a, I mean, while we're winging it all over the place here.
What table are you at?
On page 9-13, table, it's labeled 8.6, it should be 9.6. And it has ACOG's guide share projects that are listed for Oconee County. They have the 2017 budget. I don't know if it was spent that way. I hope somebody knows. But it doesn't need to be in our comprehensive plan for the future because it's done. 2018 doesn't need to be in there. Maybe even 2019 doesn't if we've already got the $1 million for Highway 59. that table should be updated, certainly, for what is the plan from ACOG for 2020, 2021, 2022, and I'd say 23. We're gonna go 4 years out if this is maybe even 24 if it's a 5-year plan. It's gonna have to be reviewed in 5 years.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression ACOG just does that every 5 years, so it may not be.
And that it's possible, yeah, they should have. If it's 2019, they ought to be looking at what they're spending in the
Well, I'm
next
sure
5
they're
years.
looking at it, but that says it was adopted in June of 2016. So I would assume maybe 2021 would be the next, when we do our 5-year plan.
Oh, okay,
We
yeah,
probably
yeah.
update that, I guess. I think.
Well, does anybody know who these people are, and does anybody know if these groups talk to each other?
I know one of the C-Fund people. I don't know them all.
Do you
I'm
think
sure
they-
I'm sure that ACOG does periodically at least notify them of something, but it's kind of like, I'm sorry, Mr. Markovich, but I have to refer back, when you talk about the mission or the job of the Planning Commission is budgetary. You said that it was making sure that we oversee the wise spending of people's money. And yet I think it's humorous that the Planning Commission yet in this county spends a lot of time knee-jerk reacting after the school district tells us where they're going to put the new school. And truly, if we are looking at the wise expenditure of people's money, we should be in on the planning of the new schools so that we're also planning for water, we're also planning for sewer, we're also planning for wider roads and bus stops and all those things. That's what we're here for. But yet, all these other groups are out there doing their own thing, and they have money. So everybody listens to those guys instead of to anything that we might say. And then they come in and tell us what it is that we have to deal with now to make the county run smoother. So, sorry, I digress for a moment there. But in my own experience with ACOG, I have seen the same thing. ACOG tends to look at a set of counties which they are concerned with, and they are doing their thing with them. And then anything in Oconee County tends to, and I don't mean to disparage them, because they do have access to a good bit of money, which benefits the county. But at the same time, I'm not real sure that they do a lot of reaching out to our C-Fund committee to say, well, hey, why don't y'all focus here, because we're going to be able to do this in the future. I think they both end up sort of the right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing until it's started, and then the other group may have to go, oh, well, okay, that's going to free us up to do this over here. What's the best use of our money now?
Well, the reason I was bringing this up was because when we get back here into the strategies, we maybe need to think about seeing if we can reword something or Smith word something and say that, these two groups maybe need to get together and talk about it, or at least publicize whatever they're doing a little bit better. You on board with that?
Gwen, this, I think the reason they left the 2018 in there for like the 24-182 intersection is because they're just explaining, okay, they budgeted for the planning in 18, but they're not actually gonna do the project till, they're gonna get the right-of-way acquisition in 2020, but then they're not actually gonna do the project till 2021. So they just didn't mark out any of it.
But then, and that's fine, but I hope certainly somewhere in here, under section, somewhere, they would be saying, currently planning for blank in 2022.
Yeah.
And then 2022 would show what they're planning to build. I just feel like this was a piece that was pulled out of somewhere and stuck in there because it fit well. But they didn't really read it as far as what needs to go in what we're going over for the future.
So what is your motion?
We don't have any motion.
Oh, we don't have a motion, we're just discussing things that are going on in
If it needs to
the
come
world.
out, But if it needs to come out, we need a motion or either some way to direct staff to take it out.
How about revising it or making it more current or
Well,
whatever?
this does say that it is their 17 through 22 graph. we may want to find out if they have a more updated graph than that ACOG's 2017 through 2022 Transportation Improvement Program graph.
And you would certainly want to know, for example, at the bottom sentence in the ACOG 2020-2021 Rural Planning Work Program, total two-year budget is $212,000, of which $170,000, $42,000 by local match funding. Where's that match funding come from? Is that our C funds? Does our C fund committee then have to approve that? And just another comment in things from my being the ancient person on the planning commission. I was told a long time ago, or when I first got involved, that this county allocated a set amount of our actual taxes for road maintenance, which is why when you drive at the end of our road and take a left to go into Anderson, the roads are much higher quality until you get to the Anderson-Oconee County line. And then all of a sudden, you could tell Oconee spends more on maintaining the roads than Anderson does. And I was told that is because Oconee plans a set amount of our tax money to be spent on road maintenance. But this indicates that they get 75% to do what they want to do with out of C funds. Is there any other allotment? And I would like to know that. Is there any other long-term plan within the county for how we maintain our roads? Because I think the county as a whole does an excellent job. How do they pay for it?
I believe the road department does have a maintenance hierarchy, maintenance priority list that they look at and they try to maintain.
And is that out of this 75% of C funds, or is that out of the 75% of C funds plus a local tax? And when I say tax, I don't know what kind of tax, but
Maybe,
Well, don't we have a 1% sales tax that goes to roads? Didn't I read that?
I don't think so. That didn't pass.
Maybe unless anybody has objection, Tom, you got about 30 seconds.
Real quick. There's a set fee that in the county budget, and I want to say it's 3 mills. Okay, it's a specific amount, it's set aside, that's out of county tax dollars. That has nothing to do with the C funds. C funds are state money, and it's primarily and that's the other thing to pay attention to. County money goes on county roads. C funds goes on state roads, and then a lot of the money that comes from ACOG, there may be some that goes on some state upgrades, but primarily that's federal money. Most of it's federal that comes through ACOG. There may be some that they can apply to the state and do some things there if there are state mandates, but in general, they're working with, that's why they don't always work together. They're working with different pots of money, so.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know ACOG is working mostly with grants and things that they see from other sources that's not here.
So tax dollars goes to county, then C funds goes to state, and ACOG goes to federal.
No, the money.
3 mills set aside, the 3 mills there's a specific 3 mills in the county budget that they use to set aside for road maintenance, and that's on county roads. And that's for like repaving and things like that. Now, and occasionally they will come up with there's a mechanism to actually go out. We have a lot of dirt roads in this, gravel roads in this county. And occasionally there's a process that you can go through in order to get that thing up to a certain level. And then they will come in some cases, if they've got the funds available, and pave some of those roads. That comes out of local money, out of tax base. But in general, yeah, the three mills that are set aside from the county budget, that goes to county roads, and it's for repaving and just fixing potholes and that sort of stuff on county roads. So.
And you question that this 75% goes to local transportation projects is not correct in this
I
statement?
think that part is correct, but that goes, it's for state roads, not for county roads.
But see, it says local transportation system projects, so that, we need to find that out.
Well, you've got locals, you've got state roads that are local, okay? Your farm to market roads are state roads, but they're considered local. And then you've got your big primary roads that are also state roads.
Right.
So there's just all these different categories of different
So C-Fund is always a state road?
Yeah, as far as I've never heard of it being, they might be able to use, in some way, they might be able to use some of that for county, but I think for
But
the
it's
most
state
part.
roads within the county.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That's the
absolutely.
thing. I mean, we're allocated a certain amount because of our population and whatever, that bucket of money. It stays within the county and works on the state roads. This whole thing is very confusing, and I'm just wondering if maybe Cheryl and Carol and whoever that group is could take another hard look at this thing and maybe try to simplify it, or,
Like what specifically? Because like so you pointed out different things, and this is a very complicated thing. At the end of the day, when we're ever trying to pull money away from a federal source or whatever source, it inherently just becomes a complicated thing. But what specifically would you like for me to look at to simplify?
I think the C funds are pretty easy to understand. That comes from your gas tax, it's allocated according to population, et cetera, et cetera. It's what ACOG does and how they do it. And nowhere in here, and hopefully when we get down to strategies, we'll talk about these two groups talking or working with each other. It's just this ACOG seems very opaque to me. Maybe I'm the only one.
Well, the only thing for me is simply, they have totally omitted the fact that Oconee County allots a set amount of money to maintain our roads. And to me, that's very important. If you drive around locally, all you gotta do is cross over a county line, and you know that Oconee does a better job than most maintaining their roads.
Maybe they should have somehow in here, basically what Tom just told us. Lay it out that we have 3 mills that go for our county
That needs
roads.
to be in-
We have C funds that go to maintain the state roads inside our county. And ACOG maintains the federal roads inside our county.
If that's what it is. But then ask them the question, do they talk to each other?
That's probably a big no. I can probably
Well, I
tell you
think
that
so
one.
too, Steve. I think so too, but I think that's something we need to add as a strategy. Well, okay. I've taken up enough time with what I've done.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other discussion on the body of the document? Let's move on to the goals, objective, and strategy. Goal 9.1, plan the location and development of transportation infrastructure to accomplish present and future needs. So we've got 9.1.1, develop and implement plans to guide decision-making on transportation issues. We have the 2 strategies that Adam reworded, I guess you'd say, fixed for us. Is there any corrections in 9.1.1.1?
If we've added specifically ACOG, should we not also then add the state C fund?
Well, I think that's down here under this, develop ongoing systematic road maintenance and upgrade program based on steady revenue sources.
9.2.1.1.
That's 9 point, yeah, that's 9.2.1.2.
Okay, yeah.
It says based on steady resources, and certainly you would say Oconee, and you would need under accountable agencies to list whoever's over the C fund committee. County transit, whatever you want to call themselves.
Does everyone agree with what's written in 9.1.1.2 and 9.1.1.3?
And you need a motion, correct, to add that, or to approve that, or?
As I've given this to you all as a draft, and we're not adding it right now, I think if you just accept this as we go, I'm fine without you having to accept everything.
I think those look fine.
And we can always add more. This won't be the last time y'all see this. So when But if you all change your mind in a month when this comes back or whatever time frame.
All right, let's move on to 9.2. Upgrade and maintain the county road system in a manner that meets the needs of the growing population and provides safe and efficient routes through the county. Any corrections or changes or things in any of the strategies for 9.2?
The only thing I would do would be is the C Fund Committee, the thing there that's labeled County Transportation Committee? Okay, I would simply add them to strategy, the second strategy as well.
Where's that, Gwen? Help me out.
Develop ongoing systematic road maintenance and upgrade program.
9.2.1.2.
It's 9.2.1.2.
Add C funds to it?
I would add that County Transportation Committee. I'm sure they already do it. I think they probably do an excellent job of it, but they're just not listed there. I think they do a really good job of what they do, period, but they're not listed there, and they should be.
Put them in there.
And I would say they would also need to be added at the 9.2.1.5.
So who, does SCDOT do federal roads? Okay, like who takes care of 85? SCDOT?
I believe so with federal funds.
It's federal. They contract that out.
I was gonna say it's usually.
They contract it out to whoever the
Right,
bidder
but
is.
who's the agency over it as far as the state goes? Because we need to make sure that we have, I mean, if we have state, federal, and county roads in this county, then we need state, federal, and county in the responsible parties.
Parties.
There's certain things that state DOT is responsible for on the interstate system. However, I mean, like highway patrol and all that sort of stuff, and then certain types of like maintenances. But if there's actual construction done to the highway, it's generally done by a federal highway contractor. So it wouldn't be the same as DOT coming in and doing the work themselves. That's not to say that they probably would go out and fix signs and do some other things like that. I mean, so it's really kind of a complicated thing, how the different ones, can be responsive. It's just like we have a lot of roads in Oconee County that they appear to be state roads, but they're really federal roads. I mean, 123 is a federal road, 28 is a federal road, but they're kind of a combination. So if federal money kind of comes in for some of that, C-Fund money comes in, there's just,
And it would probably be useless for us to put the Department of Transportation for,
But you're gonna get them down here.
the Federal Department of Transportation on there, I guess.
But I do feel like this County Transportation Committee should also be added to 9.2.1.5, because I know they also oversee where, and I can speak about the one down there in our little neck of the woods, the Golden Corner Commerce Park, the hayfield. That was all part of, when they put in the driveways and looked at widening the roads in the hopes of somebody, that was all, there were SCDOT trucks all over the place at that point in time. So I'm sure that, but the driveways and all that kind of stuff was planned through the C-Fund committee. So I would say certainly the County Transportation Committee should be right at that, on that very last one as well, where you've got high potential development.
Y'all need a motion vote for those two, or is there any more in that same goal that you want to do, so we just do one motion?
You want me to put that in the form of a motion? Or is
Yeah.
it- Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we, from 9.1 to the bottom of 9.2, we accept the staff's suggested wording in the yellow, that we add the County Transportation Committee to 9.2.1.2, that we also add them to 9.2.1.5, and that we add SCDOT to all of the objectives under 9.2.1 as accountable agencies.
Can you say that again?
I'll second that.
Well, and maybe, I was trying to summarize it and do it all at one time, but it doesn't, they don't need to go under 9.2.1.4, but SCDOT does need to go, okay, we approve the yellow part. My motion is we approve the yellow part. We add the County Transportation Committee to 9.2.1.2. We add the County Transportation Committee to 9.2.1.5.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we need to move on to 9.3 at this point.
Wait a minute, let me back up
Oh,
here.
hang on, okay.
I'm sorry. Let's go back to 9.2.1.7. Remember I talked about trying to get these two departments to talk to each other? I wonder if it can't be included in there, or maybe revise it a little bit.
What if we simply added ACOG to the accountable parties for that one?
Would that be, you think that would take care of it, just adding that in there, ACOG? And whoever that opaque group is that handles the C funds? Or do you think just?
Well, they're part of Oconee County,
I
so
know they
I
are,
would
but
think
we
that.
don't, they're not called the C fund department, are they?
No.
Okay. Do you think adding that in there will take care of that?
I think it would at least make people think about that.
Okay.
So your motion.
I'll make a motion that we add ACOG in there under the available accountable agencies under 9.2.1.7.
And I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Now we move to 9.3. Any corrections, changes, or anything for 9.3.1.1 all the way down to 9.3.1.3? We do need a motion on 9.3.1.3 for the changes that were made, or the wording that was put in there.
I make the motion that we accept the suggested change in yellow.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. 9.3.2, provide and maintain adequate, safe, and accessible trails, sidewalks, and bicycle lanes in appropriate areas to promote alternative modes of travel by residents and visitors, and to promote ecotourism opportunities. Do I hear any changes, additions, rewording of any of the strategies under that objective there?
Okay, if what Tom said is true, that we can't have sidewalks in our subdivisions, then why are we putting in policies to enhance sidewalks if we have outlawed sidewalks? That doesn't make sense to me.
If I may, you can't have sidewalks in the right of way. So you could have sidewalks, it would just push it back into your property. So the road right of ways, generally speaking, have a 50-foot right of way. It's 25 feet from center line. So if you go down to Cherry Point, High Point West, the student housing development down there, they wanted sidewalks, and they put them in, except they end feet away from the road. So it goes sidewalk, 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 edge of the right of way, grass, road, grass, edge of the right of way. So to that point, to that point, that would be, that's a great question. The task you all could say, let's say this gets adopted today and goes to council, gets ready, you all could then bring that up as far as what to change, as far as allowing sidewalks in the right of way. That kind of speaks to, that would give you all the comprehensive plan basis to allowing a sidewalk.
Should we have a goal that says that we would like to address the conflicts within current systems?
Now,
Yeah.
you're talking good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that's-
doable thing.
Okay.
And this also exists in our current plan for sidewalks, so like, if that was something that we all had a wild hair to get into, that's something that we could look at addressing, although it falls in chapter 26, which is, roads and bridges, we could certainly look into speaking and getting that train in motion. But yeah, currently it's not allowed, but it could be, it's all ink and paper.
So I'd like to make a motion that we address or add a strategy that looks at conflicts that exist under current codes or ordinances that prevent some of these objectives from happening. Or whatever I said before.
It made
Well,
more
could
sense
you just
before.
simply
Made more
say
sense
that
before.
promote alternative, safety for alternative modes of travel?
Say that again.
Safety and ease. You want to address conflicts within current code in order to provide and maintain adequate, safe, and accessible trails?
Yes, what she said,
Yeah,
is my motion.
That need to be like 9.3.1.4?
It'd be
Yes.
9.3.2,
Yeah.
2.4.
9.3.2.4.
Wait a minute, what? Tell me what it'd be again, Gwen?
9.3.2.4.
And I'll second the motion that she said that he motioned.
That I made.
Any further discussion?
The only question I have, and I'm probably gonna make some people mad, but as a child, I know I paid a fee to register my bicycle so that I could ride it around. Would that be something that would be considered under the SEEK funding opportunities for all these folks that want us to widen the roads so they have bicycle lanes?
a bicycle licensure fee,
Mhm.
that is certainly up to you all to.
Well, I'm not saying, but in other words, we haven't precluded it, correct? It says SEEK funding opportunities.
Yeah, it's not precluded.
Okay.
It's not
all right,
strictly stated as such, but it is
Okay,
definitely,
as long as it's open for possibilities.
I just think maybe that was your parents trying to take your allowance.
No, I had to go to the highway department and register my bicycle and keep a little thing, and it had to be inspected. And they never did build a cotton picking wider road or a place for me to sit on the sidewalk.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. So let's move to objective 9.3.3, continue to evaluate and fund public transportation in urbanizing areas of Oconee County, expanding as needed to provide for ongoing growth and development.
Can I suggest that,
Yes, you can.
thank you, 9.3.3.2 is very similar to the bottom one down there, .6.
Well, 6 is saying they want to go into unincorporated areas, whereas 2 is saying they want to look at different forms of mass transportation rather than just buses. Is that not correct?
I think
Well,
you're right.
I understand what you're saying, but it looks like to me that they're saying unincorporated areas when they're saying non-traditional forms.
Well, I think 9.3.3.2 is saying like van services, not necessarily the location, but maybe the type of transportation.
Or non-traditional forms like high-speed rail, not that that's gonna come here, but let's hope.
Twin bicycle.
Yeah.
Bicycle carts.
I don't know how it's gonna be high speed if it's gonna stop everywhere.
A rickshaw.
Rickshaw, that was the word I was thinking.
I can tell you the number to Charleston Rickshaw because I get calls because they call our area code instead of theirs on my cell phone. I'm not Charleston Rickshaw.
Okay,
I'm
Shut mine
sorry.
down. Or something terrible happened.
So we're saying that those are different enough?
all right, on
Change my
the
number.
back, we have another yellow highlighted section
Hope
here.
everything's free today, come on down.
That's a good one.
Yes, I apologize about that, sir. That's one more that you all had mentioned as far as having some consternation about the last meeting, was identify locations for new bus stops and add as needed with clarification. Kind of hold that back a little bit without deleting it and talk about the number of riders and coverage as opposed to bus stops and buses. If you all are okay with that?
And y'all, I'm sorry, so you backed off at the bus stops?
Well, no, not a whole, but just this particular item. It says identify locations for new bus stops and add as needed.
Okay.
So going back to the very first kind of edit I put up there was for implement plans as we get them. If bus stops are included in that, definitely, but without putting too fine a point on it. This would be kind of a broader scale brush to allow us to, if we did have bus stops and advertising and things like that.
And why do we not want to put a fine point on it? Did we talk about that last time, that we didn't want to make emphasis, or that we weren't going to be able to make emphasis?
If I recall correctly, that was just one of the, kind of the three larger items that kind of stood out to y'all as a whole. And so I went back and tried to make it as non-conflict ridden as possible and still add, so we can still do bus stops. That certainly, we can add that in here. We can, that was just something that you all had an issue with the last meeting when we brought this up.
I know bus stops, if I remember correctly, bus stops were something that has been brought up on several occasions with the outreach meetings, but then we found out from Cat that we couldn't do bus stops in certain areas because if you didn't have sidewalks, you then became liable for getting people to that bus stop. It still doesn't solve the problem that we have issue with people flagging the bus down at any point along the route.
Which goes back to not having sidewalks in the county.
So how do we solve that issue with what we have here? Because it's obviously an issue that needs to be solved.
So if under under 9 point, the first one, under 9.1.1.2, commission studies for transportation corridors, and so on and so forth, and then implement those commission or in-house studies and plans. So if bus stops are part of those in-house commission studies and plans, then bus stops are inherently, as in this, as is vegetation, as is anything else that may come out. But we can certainly add it in, but at the last meeting, there was a little bit of stress over that language.
Well, then do we need to add CAT to that accountable agencies for 9.1.1.2? If we're going to include bus stops in there, do we need to include the CAT bus?
Relevant stakeholders is what I would put for 9.1.1.3 for implementation. We could certainly CAT bus under the commission studies. Relevant stakeholders is whomever that may be. If it's bus stops, then yeah, CAT bus definitely. I could put up just relevant stakeholders under that as well, if that's something that you all would like.
Would it be inappropriate, going back to the 9.1.1.2, to say a statement such as CAT bus stops?
Sure.
The only reason I make that stressed point is it has been mentioned so many times, and it is an obstacle that we have not overcome, and to me, it is a good public relations thing to say, look, these are examples of what we are hearing and what we are trying to accomplish.
And we're aware of it, we're not just ignoring you.
So could we add such as,
Certainly.
some wording like that? So I'll make a motion that we add
Is the motion that you're gonna add bus stops?
there's an example of, in that 9.1.1.2, as an example of those things would be such as bus stops for CAT bus.
Have a motion?
I'll second that one.
And
I
I'll
like
second.
that idea.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Down at the airport?
Did we agree on the wording in 9.3.3.7?
I think we did. Didn't we?
If the bus stop language got addressed just now in this last motion, we can certainly, we can go back to what it said before, or not, that's completely up to y'all.
I don't know that we need to identify locations until we just start addressing the issue of why we can't identify locations or how to, so I think the wording on this is fine if we've addressed that we need to address a big picture.
All right, let's move on to 9.4, provide state-of-the-art regional airport for residents, business, and industries, and visitors of the county and region.
I only have one comment, and that's on 9.2.4.3. It says construct additional hangar space as needed. And that, to me, implies perhaps that we are looking to the county or the Aeronautics Commission for funding for that hangar space. And it seems to me we should be reaching out perhaps to some venture capital or private investment, or I don't think that needs to be a strictly public, yes, a strictly public money funded thing. I think that if there was an opportunity to have a developer, or I guess you wouldn't call it a hangar builder a developer, but someone who was interested in coming in and maybe perhaps working a partnership with the airport.
You mean a
You know,
private entity?
Yeah, exactly, private enterprise, someone to come in, because this implies that it's Oconee County's responsibility solely to build the hangar space. And if there's not money for that, if that's not one of the things that they get reimbursed for from the federal, the air traffic funding, I would think it would be wise for us to seek.
We had a private investor build one time, and then there was a big lawsuit back and forth, so.
Well, I'm not saying for his own plane, I'm saying in a manner to accommodate anticipated demand.
I mean, it is a county airport, it's not a private, it's not like, so the county would be responsible for buildings or whatever there. We can maybe add something
Does
in
the
there
county
that
not
we can
contract
add.
out for them to
I think
Uh,
they lease those.
relocate the roads and strengthen, do they not contract with a builder or something?
Tom?
What they have done in the past, and this is what involved the lawsuit a little bit, was that they leased the property for the building of the hangars. And sometimes that can get a little, there's not a problem with it. It's the way that particular one
I was
was
gonna
done.
say, we now have a
Yeah.
lawyer, so
Yeah.
hopefully we wouldn't make that mistake.
Well, we had a lawyer back then too.
Oh, well, maybe we have a better lawyer.
So, but anyway, most of what goes on out there at the airport, a lot of that is done with federal grants, in which the county does a 5% match, and the rest of that money comes from the feds. But yeah, they lease the property.
I don't
for-
think the hangars are part of that.
No, that's all private.
That all has to be
Yeah.
private, so,
What about public-private partnerships?
I think that would be great, yeah.
We could add public-private partnerships to 9.2.4.3.
You could always get somebody to give money just to stick their name on a hanger. That's what Clemson does.
Yeah,
You got it. Yeah, let's add that in there.
Okay.
Make that motion. Gwen, did you?
I do, I will make the motion that we add
Second it.
private enterprise as a source of construction for hangars.
Private enterprise, okay.
Or private partnership, whatever.
Whatever you want.
First and second before discussion.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second, and that's open for discussion.
More discussion. I remember sitting in when I first got on the planning commission to an airport meeting, and things may have changed since that time, but I was shocked and floored at the space for me to put my boat was twice the cost of what they were leasing airspace for airplanes at the airport. It was, wait a second, my boat is far less expensive than the planes, and I'm paying more money per month than what we as a county are leasing those hangar spaces for. So So like Gwen first brought up, I want to make sure that this is very carefully worded, not to suggest that the county is going to continue taking tax dollars and subsidizing hangar space.
Is it just hangar space that is the concern, or is it is the airport as a whole?
No, the
think
airport,
it's the-
the airport as a whole has a huge need in our county.
Okay.
And I think hangars, I don't know, but I think hangar space is always one of those things that if you have more hangar space, you can have more planes. If they get to the point that they can accommodate the planes that they want to accommodate, then that's, it isn't going to matter. They're going to have more planes. What are they going to do? Are they going to fly in here and then go someplace else to be at home? Would that not be an excellent source of income, perhaps, for the county? I don't know these. I just don't want to see the county to bear the burden. It to specifically say that the county's job is to build additional hangar space. I think we need to look at other sources of money to build them.
So are we just
So-
combining strategy 9.2.43 with strategy 9.2.4.7? Are we just combining those two?
No, we could combine them. Yeah, we could. You could add, seek public-private partnerships to fund airport operations and expansions, including hangar space. And then delete number 3 and
add private enterprise, or
yeah, just the public-private partnerships.
why not do that?
I'm good with that.
So that's your new motion. That's it, so.
That can be my motion. I'm good with that. Yes, sir.
You're gonna
Are you okay with that?
Do we need to rescind the first one?
She's changing her motion.
Well, yes. Shall I amend my motion? Okay, I would like to amend the motion to add private funding to public-private partnerships for hangar space, and simply delete 9.2.4.3 and make 9.2.4.7 say, seek public-private partnerships to fund airport operations and expansions, including additional hangar space.
You gonna get all that, Vivian?
I will. I'll go to videotape.
I got a motion. You want to keep
I'll
your second?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Is that all we have in that section? Okay. We don't have any old business. Let's move right into Mr. Mike with new business.
Alex, this is really in your ball, in your court about Dollar General. Just for everybody's information, Dollar General is coming up with a new building that is on 335 Rochester Highway. And I had contacted Alex and said if he was interested in maybe asking the Dollar General folks to see if they would be agreeable to making it look like the one that is on Ebenezer Road. The same company that's building it, they have the plans and whatever. Alex, I'll let you see if you have comments about it or whatever.
Do they ask for a permit as far as how they make the building look, that sort of thing?
It's all control-free districts, so we don't have any sort of design standards. There's no requirements for them to do.
Yeah, exactly. So you can always ask, it just depends on what.
Right, I can
They
certainly ask the
choose to
question, if you all would like me to ask that question, see if they'd be open to give me a holler and see what their plans are, I can certainly.
Is it gonna be a brand new building, or are they renovating a building?
Brand new, there's a couple houses there now they're tearing down, and they're going to put the store there.
There is a dentist's office up the street from there, not very far, that's a big brick building, very nice structure. If you want to have a tooth implant, stop in there, he'll take care of you if you're up to that kind of stuff. And further on up, it's some
pretty nice structures up through there. A lot of people going back and forth to Ingalls to shop and up to Key and that area.
So do we need a motion to,
I think that would probably be the thing, but I can only ask, they could tell me that
Break
they
it
have
down
on the
to
plan. As long as you are aware that this is just a polite ask, then yeah, we can certainly do it. I can certainly make a reach out.
Will you email us back if you get an answer from them or whatever, some kind of an answer back from them?
I can.
Well, I'll make a motion that if you would ask to see if they'd be willing to make it look similar to the Ebenezer location.
I'll second the motion.
okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. That seems to be all the business. Do I hear?
So move.
All those in favor say aye.
That's good.
The actual levy for the road mills is actually 2.1, but there's another mill that for bridges and culverts